everybody. Today we're going to talk about Azorius Tempo in Standard, a really interesting, a little bit of the scammy deck that is a solid choice at your next Standard event. We're going to talk about card choices, the overall strategy of the deck, and how to play the deck. Let's jump into it. So this is Azorius Tempo. What this deck is attempting to do is fill their graveyard with instants and sorceries as fast as possible with cards like Moment of Truth, Chart a Course, Found in the Third Path, Picklock Prankster, to fill their hand with interaction like Unsummon and Soul Partition or Split Up and Negate, and have a giant Haughty Djinn, be able to cast Aberranoculus and it just be a threat in and of itself, or cheat Aberranoculus onto the battlefield with Helping Hand and Recommission. Now, as far as the mana base goes, the only weird thing that I want to draw your attention to is we're playing an extra Surveil land in Undercity Sewers. Just a blue, it's basically like a blue Surveil land, because Surveilling is extra good in this deck because, again, we're trying to fill our graveyard as fast as possible so we can cast Aberranoculus, maybe get Aberranoculus into the graveyard so we can reanimate it, and to have a giant Haughty Djinn. That's kind of the whole point of this deck. Other than that, it's just blue-white lands that come in untapped. We're playing 4 Helping Hand. Helping Hand is 1 mana, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, tapped. The cool part about this card is, yeah, we have kind of a scam hand with, like, you know, Aberranoculus or whatever, but also we only have 8 actual threats. Picklock Prankster is only kind of a threat. We only have 8 actual threats in Haughty Djinn and Aberranoculus. And so when our opponent answers those threats, we can Helping Hand to just like bring back those threats. So really we have 12, 15 threats with Recommission as well. We're playing 2 Unsummon, return target creature to his owner's hand. This is great to protect our very few threats, but also to get other flyers out of the way or scary stuff out of the way. We're playing 3 Recommission. Recommission is 2 mana, return target artifact or creature card, mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a creature card enters this way, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So 1 more mana for a slightly better effect than Helping Hand to reanimate Aberranoculus and Haughty Djinn from the graveyard after we mill them. Playing 3 Soul Partition as a pretty unconditional removal. It is a 2 mana instant, exile target non-land permanent for as long as that card remains exiled. Its owner may play it. A spell cast by opponent this way costs 2 more to cast. This is just for problematic permanents, things like Rest in Peace, flyers to, you know, get out of the way. Remember, we're a tempo deck, so really we're just trying to make our opponent spend way more mana than we are. We're playing 4 Chart a Course. Chart a Course says 2 mana sorcery, draw 2 cards and discard a card unless you attack this turn. We don't mind discarding a card because we can reanimate stuff. We want instant sorceries in our graveyard to make Haughty Djinn giant, you know, and all that stuff. And also we're able to kind of filter the cards in our hand. We're playing Founding of the Third Path. It is a 2 mana saga where its first chapter has read ahead, and its first chapter is you may cast an instant sorcery spell with mana value 1 or 2 from your hand without paying its mana cost. So that's kind of an interesting one. Its second chapter is target player mills 4 cards. We obviously want to target ourselves with that. And its third chapter is exile target instant sorcery spell from your graveyard, copy it. You may cast that copy, and remember this, you have to cast it. So you do have to spend the mana on the third chapter. But that's just like very powerful, being able to reuse these instant sorcery cards we put in our graveyard, be able to fill our graveyard and cast spells, which is kind of what this deck is attempting to do. We're playing 4 Moment of Truth. Moment of Truth is a 2 mana instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand, 1 in your graveyard, and 1 at the bottom of your library. So we fill our graveyard and we get that decent card selection at instant speed. We're playing a 1 of Negate to deal with non-creature spells. We're playing 4 Picklock Prankster. Picklock Prankster being a 1/3 with vigilance and flying, but on its adventure side, it's mill 4 cards and put an instant sorcery card or fairy card, so it can pick itself if you mill it, from among the mill cards and put it into your hand. So again, we're milling, we're getting that card selection of instant sorceries so that we can kind of select what we want to do. Picklock Prankster is exactly what we want. Also, it applies a little bit of pressure on its front side and is a decent mana dump to just be able to cast the creature. We're playing a 1 of Split Up. The interesting part about this is we don't have a lot of creatures and we can reanimate our creatures, and it's really easy to get our creatures to be tapped or untapped, whichever we want it to be, because our creatures are evasive. So Split Up can often be just a one-sided board wipe, but we can play in the main deck. We're playing 4 Aberranoculus. Aberranoculus, 3 mana, 5/5 with flying. As an additional cost to cast a spell, exile 6 cards from your graveyard, where that's pretty easy for this deck because we're filling our graveyard so much already. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Manifest Dread, which allows us to both fill our graveyard and provide additional threats, especially if we're able to nab another Aberonoculus or a Haughty Djinn underneath that Manifest Dread, because then we can just pay the mana and turn it up right and it just be ridiculous. And then lastly, we're playing 4 Haughty Djinn. Haughty Djinn is a 3 mana star 4 with flying, and its power is equal to the number of instant sorcery cards in your graveyard, and it makes instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. That's exactly what the deck wants, right? We're filling our graveyard anyway, so we can have an absolutely massive Haughty Djinn, and it allows us to cast all of these 2 mana instant sorceries for 1 less mana, which is great. So again, the name of the game: fill our graveyard, apply this threat, protect that threat. And that's, you know, that's the kind of the tempo deck, right? It's we're casting everything super cheap. We're trying to kill our opponent in kind of one fell swoop or in just a few fell swoops. As far as the sideboard goes, Elspeth's Smite is excellent against the aggressive decks, just 1 mana interaction against attacking creatures. Destroy Evil is great for enchantments, also decent against like Shieldred, which is pretty good against us. Exercise, dealing our artifact, enchantment, and creature with power 4 or greater hate, very much our domain hate. Monastery Mentor is a fun card because it's 3 mana 2/2 with prowess, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. This is really good against decks that just have a lot of removal and have a lot of interaction with us, and we feel like we need more threats, especially if we pair this with being able to cast an instant sorcery spell like immediately. It can be really overwhelming and becomes just another must answer creature in the deck. I'm playing 2 temporary lockdown for these aggressive decks. Negate, very good against obviously decks that play non-creature spells that we care about, and Ghost Vacuum is our graveyard hate. So that is Azorius Tempo in Standard. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.